The incident that changed everything. The grocery store was alive with the usual Sunday morning buzz. Shoppers weaved their carts through the aisles, murmuring to themselves as they checked their lists, the air thick with the scent of fresh produce and the faint hum of overhead speakers playing some long-forgotten tune. Monica Green moved through the store with quiet efficiency, her mind already planning the week ahead. As a high-ranking corporate executive, she had a habit of structuring every detail of her life. Sunday mornings were for groceries, meal prep, and mental resets before the chaos of Monday took over. She reached for a bottle of almond milk, her dark, neatly braided hair cascading over one shoulder. Dressed in a fitted blazer over a crisp blouse and dark-washed jeans, she carried herself with confidence, a woman who had worked hard to build the life she deserved. But then it happened. A rough, uninvited hand gripped her waist. Monica barely had time to react before she was spun slightly off balance. The pressure of a strong hand pressed against her backside, lingering in a way that sent a jolt of shock through her entire body. Her breath hitched, her stomach twisted. "What the hell?" she shouted, jerking away, her hands gripping her cart as she regained her footing. The man who had grabbed her stepped back, his smirk dripping with arrogance. A tall, broad-shouldered white man with neatly combed blonde hair and sharp blue eyes, dressed in a casual polo and khakis, his demeanor screamed entitlement. His smirk widened. "Relax," he said, waving a dismissive hand. "It was just a little fun." Monica's heart pounded in her chest. Just a little fun. The audacity, the sheer disregard, it made her blood boil. "You put your hands on me," she spat, her voice trembling, not with fear, but with rising fury. "Who the hell do you think you are?" The man chuckled as if she was overreacting. "Oh, come on. You people are usually good for a little fun, aren't you?" Monica froze. The words hung in the air, heavy with centuries of oppression, disdain, and prejudice. "You people." Her fingers curled into fists. "What did you just say?" The man took a step closer, lowering his voice as he leaned in. "I said, you should loosen up. No one here cares." Monica's eyes darted around, her pulse hammering against her ribs. Shoppers stood nearby. A middle-aged woman clutched her cart, avoiding eye contact. A man in a suit glanced at the commotion, but quickly turned away. A store employee pretended to rearrange cans, deliberately ignoring the situation. No one intervened. No one stepped forward. The world kept turning as if what had just happened was unimportant, as if she was unimportant. Her breath came in sharp, uneven waves. "You saw that, right?" She turned to the nearest bystander. "He grabbed me. He assaulted me." The woman hesitated, then turned her cart the other way and walked off. The man in the suit glanced at his watch and muttered, "I didn't see anything." Monica's stomach twisted. Complicity. That was what this was. A silent agreement to let things like this slide. The kind of indifference that allowed people like this man, who still stood there, smirking, to believe they could do whatever they wanted without consequence. "I'm reporting this," Monica declared, her voice a steel edge. "You're not getting away with it." The man, Jacob Wallace, though she didn't yet know his name, rolled his eyes dramatically. "Go ahead. Report me. See how far that gets you." Monica clenched her jaw and stormed toward the customer service desk. Her hands trembled as she approached the middle-aged store manager, a white woman with glasses perched at the tip of her nose. The name tag read Linda. Monica recounted the incident, every detail spilling out in sharp, clipped words. She pointed toward the aisle where Jacob still loitered, lazily browsing the shelves, as if nothing had happened. Linda nodded, her polite smile never quite reaching her eyes. "That's terrible," she said with no real emotion. "Do you know his name?" "No," Monica admitted, "but he's still in the store." Linda hesitated. Her gaze flickered toward Jacob, and for a split second, something in her expression shifted. Uncertainty, reluctance. "I see," she finally said. "Well, I'll look into it." Monica's brow furrowed. That's it. He assaulted me. Shouldn't you be calling the police? Linda sighed, as if Monica was being unreasonable. Look, I understand you're upset, but these situations can be complicated. Monica's stomach twisted. Complicated. He grabbed me, bent me over, and touched me inappropriately. Monica snapped. How much clearer can it get? Linda's expression remained neutral. I can file a report, but there's not much we can do without more witnesses. Monica stared in disbelief. Witnesses? The entire store saw it, and they did nothing. So you're just going to let him walk away? She asked, her voice raw. Linda pressed her lips into a thin line. I'm sorry, but there's only so much we can do. Monica felt like the ground beneath her had crumbled. Jacob had been right. No one cared. The injustice of it all settled over her like a suffocating weight. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the store, her groceries forgotten. She sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel, shaking with frustration. Hot tears slid down her cheeks, tears not of weakness, but of rage. He had touched her, humiliated her, violated her, and no one gave a damn. Her phone buzzed. It was her best friend, Tasha. Monica took a shaky breath before answering. Tasha, she choked out, her voice raw. I don't even know what to say. What happened? Tasha's voice was immediately laced with concern. Monica told her everything. By the time she finished, Tasha was silent for a moment before saying, You're not powerless, Monica. And you sure as hell aren't going to let this slide. Monica wiped at her eyes. But what can I do? No one cared. No one stepped in. You start by holding your head high, Tasha said firmly. And when the time comes, you make him regret ever crossing you. Monica swallowed hard. She had fought too hard in life to let this moment break her. As she drove home, she made herself a promise. She would not let Jacob Wallace walk away from this unscathed. And, unknowingly, fate had already set things in motion. Because by Monday morning, Jacob Wallace would be walking into her office for his first day on the job. The power shift begins. Monica barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, Jacob Wallace's smug expression burned in her mind like a scar. His sneer, his condescension, the way his hands had invaded her space, touching her as if she were nothing, as if he had the right. Worse than that, the silence. The bystanders had looked away. The store manager had shrugged. The world had chosen indifference. But Monica wouldn't. She was done being polite, done letting things slide. She had worked too damn hard to get where she was, rising from an underprivileged background to a position of power in a company where few people who looked like her had ever set foot in leadership. She had earned her place, and Jacob Wallace was about to learn exactly who he had messed with. Monday morning, the welcome surprise. Monica walked into MetroRise marketing headquarters with her head held high. The glass-paneled skyscraper stood as a testament to everything she had fought for. Her assistant, Darius, greeted her at the door with his usual wide grin. "Morning, boss," he said, falling into step beside her. "The team's all set for the onboarding session at 10. Oh, and we got a last-minute hire joining today. A guy named Jacob Wallace." Monica stopped dead in her tracks. Her pulse pounded. She could not have heard that right. "What did you just say?" she asked, her voice deceptively calm. Darius, oblivious to the storm brewing inside her, handed her a tablet. "Yeah, some mid-level executive transfer. Comes highly recommended. Though between you and me, HR was kinda vague about his past work history." Monica's fingers tightened around the device as she scanned the name. Jacob Wallace. The same Jacob Wallace. The man who had humiliated her in public was about to walk into her company, into her space, and report to a leadership structure where she was in charge. Fate, it seemed, had delivered him to her doorstep. A slow, knowing smile curled at the corners of her lips. Oh, this is going to be interesting. The first encounter. At exactly 10 o'clock, Monica strode into the conference room where new hires were being briefed. And there he was. Jacob Wallace sat near the back, looking relaxed, his blonde hair perfectly styled, his expensive watch glinting under the overhead lights. He was completely at ease, completely unaware. For a moment, Monica said nothing. She let the moment stretch, watching as his overconfidence radiated off him like a stench. Then, slowly, she stepped to the podium. The second she spoke, Jacob's head snapped up. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Monica Green, Director of Operations." The color drained from his face. Monica saw it happen, saw the moment realization dawned on him. The way his smirk vanished like smoke. His fingers twitched against the table. And for the first time, he looked nervous. "Good. First," Monica continued, "I'd like to welcome our new hires. Here at MetroRise, we pride ourselves on maintaining a culture of respect, professionalism, and above all, accountability." Her gaze locked onto Jacob's. His jaw tensed. Monica's lips curled into a knowing smile. "We believe in treating people with dignity, in ensuring that our workplace is safe for everyone. That's not just a company policy, it's a requirement." She didn't look away. Jacob shifted in his seat. Monica let the silence drag, savoring the shift in power. He knew. And he knew that she knew. Then, turning away as if he were no more important than the carpet beneath her heels, Monica continued with the presentation as if nothing had happened. The confrontation. The meeting ended. New hires filed out. "Jacob?" He hesitated. Monica watched as he debated leaving. His fingers drummed against the table. Agitation, nerves, guilt. "Good." Finally, he stood, squared his shoulders, and strode toward her, his usual arrogance back in place, forced, but present. "Monica," he said smoothly, flashing a weak smile. "Wow. Small world, huh?" She tilted her head, feigning polite confusion. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" His smile faltered. Oh, wait." She snapped her fingers, pretending to search her memory. "You're the man who groped me in a grocery store." His face went white. A few passing employees overheard and paused. Their heads turned, listening. Jacob panicked. "Whoa, okay, let's not blow things out of proportion here," he said quickly, stepping closer. "That was a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Monica's voice sharpened. "You grabbed me. You put your hands on me. You humiliated me in public." Jacob's eyes darted around. A few employees lingered at the doorway, watching. His voice dropped. "Look, can we talk about this privately?" "Oh, suddenly you want privacy." Monica arched an eyebrow. "Funny, you didn't care about privacy when you groped me in a crowded store." Jacob winced. "Monica, please." "Miss Green," she corrected coldly. Jacob inhaled sharply. He was losing control of the situation, and he knew it. Monica smiled. A sharp, victorious thing. "Oh, and in case you're wondering, yes, HR already knows. I filed a report the minute I saw your name on the onboarding list." Jacob stiffened. "You?" "That's right." She crossed her arms. "And considering MetroRise's zero-tolerance policy on workplace harassment, I'd say your first day might also be your last." His hands clenched at his sides. "Does that make you uncomfortable?" Monica asked sweetly, feeling powerless, feeling like no one's on your side. Jacob glared at her, his face burning with frustration. "You think you're better than me," he spat. Monica's expression never wavered. "I don't need to be better than you," she said calmly. "I just need to be smarter." She let that sink in. Then, without waiting for a response, she turned on her heel and walked away. Jacob stood there, fuming. "Monica." She smiled to herself. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The predator on the edge. Jacob Wallace was a man who had always walked through life untouchable. He had been raised in privilege, surrounded by people who reinforced his belief that the rules didn't apply to him. Women, they were conquests. Boundaries, he crossed them without hesitation. Consequences, he had never faced any, until now. Sitting in his office, his fingers drummed aggressively against his desk as he processed what had just happened. His jaw was clenched so tight it ached. His new boss, the woman he had humiliated in the grocery store, had turned the tables on him. She had looked him in the eye, held her ground, and made it clear that she owned the game now. His blood boiled. She had embarrassed him in front of his colleagues, called him out, threatened his job. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. The web of power begins to unravel. Jacob had connections. He always did. Whenever something went wrong, he knew people who could cover for him. His first instinct, HR. He needed to get ahead of whatever Monica Green had done. With a deep breath, he composed himself and made his way to HR. He'd charm them, twist the story in his favor, make Monica seem like the angry, overreacting woman. HR knows the truth. The HR department was located on the 22nd floor, far away from the executive offices where Monica's power thrived. Pauline Richards, the HR director, was a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s. She was experienced, respected, and not easily manipulated. The moment Jacob stepped into her office, she didn't look surprised. She had been expecting him. "Jacob," Pauline said, folding her hands over a thick file. His file. Something about the way she said his name made him uneasy. "Pauline." Jacob forced a casual smile, taking the seat across from her. "Listen, I wanted to clear the air before this misunderstanding gets out of hand." Pauline's expression remained unreadable. "Go on." "I get that Monica is upset," he said smoothly. "I understand how something harmless might have been misinterpreted." Pauline raised an eyebrow. "Harmless," she echoed. Jacob nodded quickly. "Yeah, I think there's been a bit of an overreaction here. I wouldn't want this to become a workplace issue, especially when I just started." Pauline opened the file in front of her and slid a document across the desk. A formal complaint. Jacob's stomach tightened as he read Monica's report. It was airtight, detailed, backed by evidence. His throat went dry. "I reviewed the store's security footage, Jacob," Pauline said calmly, watching his reaction. Jacob's mind raced. The store had cameras. His face flushed. "To be clear," Pauline continued, "this is not a misunderstanding. This is a violation of company ethics and potentially criminal behavior. Metrorise has a strict policy regarding harassment, both in and out of the workplace." Jacob forced a laugh. "Come on, Pauline. This is ridiculous. You're going to ruin my career over a small thing." "It's not like I hurt her." Pauline's expression hardened. "That's where you're wrong. You did hurt her, and you're about to face the consequences." Jacob's fists clenched under the table. He had walked in thinking he could control the narrative. Instead, he had walked into a trap. Monica had outplayed him. The fall begins. The rest of the day spiraled out of control for Jacob. First, his access to certain company systems was restricted. Then, an internal memo was circulated, announcing that the company was conducting a formal investigation into allegations of misconduct, without naming names. But everyone knew. His coworkers, the same ones who had laughed at his jokes and patted him on the back, were now whispering behind his back. Conversations would suddenly stop when he entered a room. He felt eyes on him everywhere he went. And Monica. She walked through the office like a queen in her domain. Confident, unshaken. She wasn't done with him yet. The predator tries to strike back. Jacob wasn't a man who accepted defeat. That night, he made a decision. If he couldn't win through charm, he'd use intimidation. At 9:30 p.m., Monica was still in her office, wrapping up a proposal for an upcoming client pitch. The building was mostly empty. Jacob saw his opportunity. He pushed open her office door without knocking. Monica didn't even flinch. She didn't look surprised. She simply finished typing, closed her laptop, and folded her hands over her desk. Jacob closed the door behind him. "We need to talk." Monica slowly leaned back in her chair. "No, Jacob, you need to leave." His jaw tightened. He stepped closer. "You think you've won, don't you?" Monica's expression remained unreadable. "I think I've held you accountable." Jacob's fingers curled into fists. "You don't know who you're messing with." Monica finally smiled. "That's the problem, Jacob. You don't know who you're messing with." She pulled her phone out from under her desk and turned the screen toward him. The office security feed. Jacob stilled. Monica tilted her head. "I'm assuming you didn't realize the entire building has cameras, including this office." Jacob's throat went dry. "Would be a shame," she continued, "if MetroRise's board of directors saw you cornering a woman alone in her office at night after already being under investigation." Jacob took a step back. "You should go now," Monica said smoothly, "before you make this even worse for yourself." Jacob's face burned with humiliation, frustration, and rage. He had lost control. And Monica had all the power. The final blow. The next morning, Pauline called Jacob back to HR. His official termination papers were waiting. "Wait, you're actually firing me." Jacob laughed bitterly. "You're ruining my career over some bullshit." Pauline's face remained stone cold. "No, Jacob, you ruined your own career." His signature was required. Jacob's hands shook as he signed. That was it. Monica Green had ended him. And the worst part? No one cared. The men he had once shared drinks with, they stayed silent. The women he had once belittled, they smiled in satisfaction. The corporate world he had once dominated, it moved on without him. Jacob Wallace walked out of MetroRise Marketing as a disgraced man. And Monica? She watched him go without a second thought. She had more important things to focus on. Her real work was just beginning. Rebuilding the future, one step at a time. The office buzzed with an energy Monica Green had never felt before. It wasn't just about Jacob Wallace's termination. Though that was a victory in itself, it was about the shift in the atmosphere. For the first time since she had joined MetroRise Marketing, she saw a real change. Women who had once spoken in hushed tones in meetings now held their heads high. Employees who had once hesitated to report misconduct now felt safe enough to speak up. The silence that had once suffocated the workplace was gone. But Monica knew her fight wasn't over. The aftermath of Jacob's fall. After Jacob was fired, the company sent out an official statement. MetroRise Marketing is committed to upholding integrity, respect, and accountability in our workplace. We have a zero-tolerance policy for misconduct, and we encourage an environment where every employee feels valued and safe. It was vague, the way corporate statements always were, but everyone knew what it meant. Jacob Wallace's name wasn't in the email, but his absence spoke volumes. For the first time, employees felt like their voices mattered. And Monica? She had won the battle, but she had bigger wars to fight. The CEO takes notice. A week after Jacob's termination, Monica received an unexpected meeting request from none other than CEO Henry Callaway himself. Henry was a legend in the business world, a self-made billionaire who had built MetroRise Marketing from a small startup into an empire. He was known for being cutthroat, strategic, and ruthless, a man who rarely concerned himself with office drama. So why was he calling her in? Monica walked into the boardroom, her back straight, her chin high. Henry sat at the long glass conference table, sipping black coffee. His gray eyes studied her as she entered, his expression unreadable. "Miss Green," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "Mr. Callaway," she responded smoothly. A pause. Then Henry smirked. "You've been making waves." Monica didn't blink. "I prefer to think of it as making progress." His smirk widened. "Some would say you've disrupted the company's culture." Monica leaned forward slightly. The company's culture needed to be disrupted. Henry chuckled, nodding approvingly. "Good answer." She exhaled quietly. He wasn't here to reprimand her. If I'm being honest, Henry continued, Metrorise has had problems for a while. Old habits, old mentalities. I've let my executives handle things, but now I see I should have stepped in sooner. Monica raised an eyebrow. You're saying you knew there were issues? Henry tilted his head. I've known for years. But the problem with power, Miss Green, is that people rarely challenge it. Until someone like you comes along. His words carried weight. What do you want from me, Mr. Calloway? Henry took a slow sip of his coffee. I want you to do more than just fix this office. I want you to help me fix this company. Monica blinked. She hadn't expected this. You're offering me. What exactly? A promotion, Henry said simply. Senior Vice President of Corporate Integrity and Leadership Development. You'll oversee company-wide reforms. Not just Metrorise HQ, all of our global branches. Monica's stomach flipped. This was huge, a massive step forward. But it also meant more responsibility, more pressure, more battles. Henry studied her carefully. You can say no. I won't hold it against you. But I think you're the kind of person who doesn't walk away from a fight. Monica's fingers tightened around the armrest of her chair. He was right. She wasn't done fighting. She never would be. The offer she couldn't refuse. I accept, Monica said. Henry grinned. I thought you would. The meeting ended, but Monica's mind was already racing. This was it. She had stepped up. Now she had the power to truly make a difference. And she would. The mentorship initiative, lifting others up. One of the first things Monica did in her new role was launch a mentorship program across Metrorise's global offices. She knew firsthand how difficult it was for women and people of color to rise in the corporate world. She had fought tooth and nail to get here. And now she would make sure no one else had to fight alone. She handpicked mentors, leaders who shared her vision, people who genuinely cared about fostering talent. And at the top of her mentee list, Sophia Diaz, the young marketing assistant who had been one of the first to come forward about Jacob Wallace's behavior. When Sophia got the email inviting her to the mentorship program, she ran straight to Monica's office, her eyes wide with disbelief. Are you serious? She asked, clutching her phone. Monica smiled. Dead serious. But, I'm just an assistant. I'm not. You're a leader in the making, Monica interrupted. And leaders don't wait for permission to rise. They just do it. Tears filled Sophia's eyes. No one's ever believed in me like this before. Then let's change that, Monica said simply. Sophia nodded fiercely, determination hardening in her gaze. This was what Monica had fought for. Not just to take down one predator, but to build a future where people like Sophia could thrive. The world takes notice. Monica's work didn't go unnoticed. Her initiatives were covered by major business magazines. Industry leaders reached out for guidance on building safer workplaces. One evening, as she sat in her apartment, scrolling through her emails, she found a message from an unexpected source. Linda, the grocery store manager. The subject line read, I owe you an apology. Monica hesitated, then opened it. Monica, I don't know if you remember me, but I was the manager at the grocery store where that awful incident happened. I need you to know, I saw everything. I saw you asking for help. I saw the way he treated you. And I did nothing. I've spent every day since then regretting it. Reading about what you've done, how you stood up for yourself, for others, has made me realize that I was part of the problem. I should have spoken up. I should have helped you. I didn't. And I'm sorry. I want to do better. I need to do better. And I wanted you to know that you've changed more than just your company. You've changed me too. Thank you. Linda. Monica stared at the email for a long time. Then, slowly, she exhaled. Change was slow. Change was hard. But it was happening. And she wasn't done yet. Monica Green had won. But she was just getting started. There would always be another battle. another system to fix, another voice to amplify. And Monica, she was ready for whatever came next, because she was built for this, and she would never be silent again. A legacy in the making. Monica read Linda's email again, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. It would have been easy to dismiss it, to tell Linda she was too late, that her silence in the grocery store had made her complicit. But Monica had learned something over the years. Change doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small, painful steps. Some people never took those steps, but some did, and that mattered. Finally, she typed her response. Linda, thank you for reaching out. I won't lie, your inaction that day hurt. It reinforced something I had known my entire life, that too many people stay silent when they should speak up. But the fact that you're writing this email tells me something else, that you're willing to change, that you see what went wrong, that you want to do better. And that's what truly matters. We can't go back and undo the past, but we can learn from it. You have a chance now to be the person you weren't that day. Next time, speak up. Next time, don't look away. Because silence is what allows people like Jacob Wallace to thrive. Be better, and thank you for reaching out. Monica. She hit send and leaned back in her chair. The weight of everything that had happened settled over her, but it didn't feel heavy. It felt like victory, building something that lasts. The next morning, Monica arrived at work with a new sense of clarity. Her new role wasn't just about restructuring policies, it was about changing mindsets. She had a vision, and nothing was going to stop her from making it happen. 1. The anonymous reporting system. One of her first orders of business was implementing an ironclad reporting system. No one should ever feel unsafe at work. No one should ever hesitate to come forward because of fear. The new system allowed employees to submit complaints anonymously, ensuring real accountability. It didn't take long for the reports to start coming in. Some were about microaggressions. Some were about blatant harassment. Some were heartbreaking. Monica personally reviewed every case, ensuring no one was ignored. Jacob Wallace had been one predator, but there were others. She made it clear. Metrorise would never be a safe haven for abusers again. 2. Leadership training for all executives. Monica knew that change had to start from the top. She required every single executive to go through mandatory leadership and inclusivity training. She invited speakers, people who had spent years studying bias, discrimination, and power dynamics. At first, there was resistance. Some of the older executives, mostly men like Jacob, rolled their eyes. But Monica didn't flinch. If you can't handle being held accountable, she said in one meeting, then you have no business being in leadership. And just like that, the resistance crumbled. 3. A direct path for women and minorities to leadership. Monica knew the struggles of being a black woman in corporate America. She had spent years climbing the ladder, breaking down barriers one by one. Now, she was removing those barriers completely. She established a direct mentorship and sponsorship program, one that connected women and minorities with executives who actually wanted to help. She made sure that diverse voices were heard in board meetings. She hand-selected promising young employees, people like Sophia Diaz, and made sure they got the support and resources they needed to rise. And just like that, the landscape of Metrorise began to change. The future of the company was no longer dominated by old, outdated ideas. It was diverse. It was inclusive. It was stronger than ever. And Monica Green was at the center of it all. The interview that changed everything. A month later, Monica received an invitation to do a televised interview. The host, Vanessa Larkins, one of the most respected black journalists in the country. The topic, the future of corporate leadership and the woman who's changing it. Monica hesitated. She wasn't sure if she wanted to step into the public eye like that. But then she thought about all the women like her, the ones still being silenced, ignored, dismissed. She thought about the Sophia Diazes of the world, the ones who needed someone to look up to. And she said yes. The interview. The studio lights were bright. The cameras were rolling. Vanessa Larkin smiled across from her. "Monica Green," she said, "you've built a reputation as a powerhouse in the corporate world. But that's not where this all started, is it?" Monica smiled slightly. "No, it started in a grocery store." Vanessa leaned forward. "Tell me about that day." Monica took a deep breath. She told the story, the violation, the silence of the bystanders, the indifference of the manager, the powerlessness she had felt. And then, the moment it all changed. "When I walked into work that Monday morning," Monica said, "and saw that Jacob Wallace, the man who had assaulted me, was about to start working for me, I knew I had two choices." Vanessa's eyes were sharp, and those were. Monica smiled. To stay silent, a pause, or to make him regret ever putting his hands on me. The audience erupted into applause. Vanessa chuckled. "And you did. But more than that, you made real change. What drives you, Monica?" Monica's smile softened. "The knowledge that there's always someone out there who needs to see this happen. Someone who needs to know they're not alone. Someone who needs to see that they can fight back and win." Vanessa nodded. "And what would you say to women, especially black women, who are still fighting this battle?" Monica's voice was steady, unwavering. "Never let them silence you. Never let them make you feel small. You have power, and you deserve to take up space." She held Vanessa's gaze. "And when someone tells you to let it go, when someone tells you to move on," she leaned forward slightly, "you make them regret ever underestimating you." The legacy of Monica Green. The interview went viral. Monica became a household name. Her inbox was flooded with messages, from women thanking her, from companies asking for guidance, from people who had been inspired to stand up for themselves. And as Monica sat in her office, overlooking the city skyline, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Because this time, she knew, she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for everyone who had ever been told to stay quiet. And she would never stop. Not now. Not ever. When power shifts, the world watches. Monica Green sat in her office, sipping a hot cup of tea, watching the sun set over the city skyline. It had been 3 months since Jacob Wallace had been fired. 3 months since she had reshaped Metro Rise marketing from a company built on quiet complicity to one that held people accountable. Her days were now filled with strategy meetings, mentorship sessions, and high-stakes negotiations with corporate leaders who were suddenly desperate to learn from her. Her nights. They were spent reading the endless flood of messages. From women, men, professionals, survivors, people who had been afraid to speak up, people who had seen what she had done and realized, for the first time, that they didn't have to be silent anymore. Monica had become a force, but with power came new enemies, and someone was about to strike back. The shadow that wouldn't stay gone. Jacob Wallace should have been gone. His career ruined. His influence stripped away. His reputation destroyed. But men like Jacob never accepted defeat gracefully. When they lost power, they clawed to get it back. And Jacob had one last card to play. The anonymous attack. One morning, Monica arrived at work to find the office in chaos. People whispered in tight clusters. Screens were lit up with a new viral headline. Monica's assistant, Darius, rushed up to her, his face pale. "Boss, you need to see this." He handed her a printed article. Monica's stomach tightened as she read the title. The Dark Side of Corporate Accountability. Is Monica Green running a witch hunt? She scanned the article, her pulse thundering. It was an attack piece, twisting the truth, painting her as a tyrant, claiming she had fabricated Jacob Wallace's misconduct to climb the corporate ladder. They even included anonymous testimonies from people who claimed she was the real bully. Her hand shook as she flipped through the pages. And then she saw it. A quote from Jacob Wallace himself. "I was wrongfully accused and blacklisted from an industry I loved, I made a single mistake in a casual setting, and Monica Green used it to ruin my life. Now she's pushing an agenda that destroys careers based on hearsay. Who will be her next victim? Monica gritted her teeth. He wasn't just trying to rebuild his reputation. He was coming for hers. When they push, you push back harder. Monica wasn't surprised. Men like Jacob always played the victim when they lost. They always made themselves martyrs. What Jacob didn't realize, she was already 10 steps ahead. The battle moves to the boardroom. By noon, MetroRise's executive board had called an emergency meeting. Some of the board members, the older men who had once been Jacob's allies, looked uneasy. Monica could feel it in the air. They wanted to know if she was a liability. They wanted to know if she had gone too far. She took her seat at the table, her face calm, her eyes sharp. Henry Calloway, the CEO, looked at her. "Monica, we need to discuss this article." Monica folded her hands. "We do." An older board member, David Sterling, leaned forward. "We're getting pressure from investors. Some are concerned about how aggressive our policies have been." Monica raised an eyebrow. "You mean the policies that protect employees from harassment?" David hesitated. "No one is saying protection is bad. But the media is calling this a witch hunt. That's bad press." Monica kept her voice steady. "Bad press for whom? The company? Or the men who are upset they finally have to face consequences?" A few board members shifted uncomfortably. David sighed. "Monica, be reasonable. You've made enemies. This kind of bad press could hurt your career." Monica leaned forward, her expression unyielding. "You're right about one thing, David. I have made enemies. But the people who are standing with me, they outnumber the people who want me gone. And they are watching how MetroRise handles this." Silence settled over the room. Monica didn't back down. "I'm not here to make powerful men comfortable," she continued. "I'm here to make workplaces safe. If that means losing a few investors who would rather protect predators, then so be it." Henry Calloway chuckled. "Well," he said, his voice full of amusement, "I, for one, think we should keep her." Relief rippled through Monica's team. David Sterling sighed. "Fine, but we need a public response." Monica nodded. She already had one prepared. The response that broke the internet. That evening, Monica posted a statement. "Accountability is not a witch hunt. It's not cancel culture. It's not an attack. It's a basic expectation of decency." Jacob Wallace was fired because he violated company policies. He was fired because he assaulted a woman in public and then thought he could get away with it. If defending myself and protecting others makes me an enemy of powerful men, then so be it. To every survivor who has ever been told they're overreacting, I see you, I believe you, and I will never stop fighting for you. The response was immediate. Within minutes, the post was shared thousands of times. By the next morning, it had millions of likes. Celebrities, activists, and corporate leaders rallied behind her. #IStandWithMonica trended worldwide. Jacob Wallace. He had tried to bury Monica. Instead, he had made her unstoppable. The future is hers. 1 month later, Monica was invited to speak at a global leadership summit. As she stood on the stage, looking out at thousands of people, she realized something. She had spent so many years fighting to survive, fighting to be heard, fighting to be respected, fighting to matter. But now, she wasn't just fighting anymore. She was leading, and she was just getting started. Final words. As the summit ended, Monica received one last email. From Linda, the grocery store manager. "Monica, I saw your speech today. I just wanted to say, you changed me. You made me realize what silence does. Because of you, I spoke up in my own company today. I reported something I would have ignored before. I just thought you should know. You're changing more than just MetroRise. You're changing the world." Monica read the email twice. Then she smiled. Because this was why she did it. Monica Green had won. But the war wasn't over. Not yet. Not ever. And she was ready for whatever came next. The war is never over, only evolved. The world knew Monica Green's name now. She had survived the attack on her credibility. She had dismantled a predator's power. She had reshaped an entire corporation. But this was only the beginning. Because when a black woman rises, the world doesn't just watch. It pushes back. And Monica knew the next attack was coming. The question was, would they be ready for her this time? A new kind of enemy. A week after her speech at the Global Leadership Summit, Monica received an unexpected call. The voice on the other end was clipped and professional. "Miss Green, I'm with the Federal Corporate Ethics Committee. We need to speak with you immediately." Monica froze. The FCEC. That was serious. She took a slow breath. "I'll be right there." Her mind raced as she grabbed her coat and headed to her car. This wasn't about Jacob Wallace anymore. This was bigger. And she was about to find out just how deep the rot went. The meeting that changed everything. The Federal Corporate Ethics Committee's office was located in a towering government building, sterile and intimidating. As Monica walked in, she was greeted by two officials, a stern-looking woman named Agent Carter and a younger man named Agent Price. They led her into a private conference room. A thick file sat on the table. And then Agent Carter said the words that made Monica's blood run cold. "Miss Green, do you know who owns Metrorise Marketing?" Monica frowned. "Henry Calloway, the CEO." Agent Price slid the file toward her. "Not anymore." Monica flipped it open, and what she saw inside made her stomach turn. The empire built on corruption. Metrorise Marketing had been quietly acquired by a larger, faceless conglomerate. On paper, it looked like a standard corporate acquisition. But the real story, it was a coordinated effort to shut Monica down, to erase everything she had built, to silence her permanently. And the worst part, Jacob Wallace's connections were behind it. The setup. Agent Carter leaned forward. "Monica, this isn't just about you anymore. This is about the entire corporate system." She flipped another page in the file. It was a classified email exchange. High-level executives, corporate board members, planning, plotting, making sure people like Monica Green never got this far again. Her mouth felt dry. "They're trying to undo everything." Agent Price nodded grimly. "And they're doing it legally. A hostile takeover, hidden under layers of corporate shell companies. It wouldn't happen overnight. But within 6 months, everything Monica had built, it would be gone." Fighting back, the smart way. Monica sat in silence for a long time. This wasn't like fighting Jacob Wallace. That had been personal. This was systemic. She couldn't fight dirty. She had to fight smart. She exhaled slowly. "What do you need from me?" Agent Carter slid another file toward her. "You've got 6 months to stop them, Monica." She locked eyes with them. "Then let's get to work." The war room. That night, Monica gathered her team, her mentorship program leaders, her most loyal executives, her legal advisors. She laid out the plan. "This isn't just about Metrorise anymore," she told them. "This is about every single company that thinks it can silence people like us." Sophia Diaz, her young mentee, looked terrified. "But how do we fight something this big?" Monica's lips curled into a slow, sharp smile. "We make them fear us more than they fear change." The counterattack. Monica didn't go after the money. She didn't go after the investors. She went after the people. She launched a campaign bigger than anything Metrorise had ever done. Not against the company, against the system. She exposed everything. She leaked the emails, the documents, the plans. She called out the executives hiding in the shadows. She gave journalists the ammunition they needed. And then, she brought in the people. The power of the people. The moment the truth went public, the backlash was instant. Protests erupted outside Metrorise headquarters. Investors pulled their money. Stockholders demanded answers. Other companies, fearful of the scandal spreading to them, scrambled to distance themselves. And just like that, the takeover collapsed. Monica had won. Again, the final showdown. A month later, Henry Calloway, the CEO who had once offered her a promotion, requested a meeting. Monica walked into his office, her posture calm, controlled. Henry sat behind his desk, looking older, exhausted. "You made this personal, Monica," he said quietly. "It was always personal," she responded. A pause. Then Henry sighed. "What do you want?" Monica leaned forward. "Your seat at the table." Henry's eyes widened. "You're asking me to." "I'm not asking," Monica interrupted. "You're stepping down, and I'm taking your place." Henry laughed bitterly. "You really think the board will go for that?" Monica smiled. They don't have a choice. Because she had already spoken to them, and they knew. If they tried to stop her, she would burn it all down. Henry stared at her for a long time. Then finally, he nodded. It was done. CEO Monica Green. 3 weeks later, Metrorise Marketing had a new CEO. Her first action: she replaced half the executive team. Her second: she made sure the next generation had the power to lead. Because this wasn't just her victory. This was a revolution. The final chapter. For now, Monica stood at the edge of her office, looking out over the city she had once been afraid to claim as her own. She had started as a woman who was told to stay quiet. Now, she was the most powerful woman in the room. And as long as she had breath in her body, she would never let anyone silence her again.